right now, your brain is actually lying to you.
Oh, absolutely. All day, every day.
Yeah, it's taking the incredibly complex, like multifaceted people and situations in your life, and it's flattening them.
Just turning them into two-dimensional cardboard cutouts.
Exactly. And shoving them into these mental filing cabinets. I mean, we do this every single day, right? We meet someone new or read a headline or, encounter a strange idea, and our brain immediately scrambles for a label to just slap on it.
Because we think those labels keep us safe.
Right. We think they help us navigate the world. But what if those very same labels are actually the things making us feel so isolated from reality?
I mean, it is the ultimate paradox of human cognition. We use categorization as, like, a survival tool.
Yeah, to manage the overwhelm.
Exactly, to reduce the massive cognitive load of living in just a totally unpredictable universe. But in doing so, we trap ourselves in a world of our own assumptions.
We box ourselves in.
Right, we stop interacting with reality, and we start interacting with our preconceived categories.
So today we're doing a deep dive into an ancient feeling, just deeply profound piece of philosophical storytelling. It's called Know Before You Assume, a timeless story of the first and the second.
It's a fascinating text.
It really is. And on the surface, if you just glance at the source material, it reads almost like a mythological creation story. There are cosmic entities, a dawn of existence, swirling stars, all that stuff.
Yeah, it has that grand, epic tone.
But we're looking at this text as a psychological mirror for you, the listener. We're exploring where this relentless urge to categorize comes from.
And the danger of what the text calls seeing in halves.
Yeah, seeing in halves. I love that phrase. And ultimately, we're going to look at how we might fundamentally rewire the way we perceive the people around us.
Well, the beauty of this text is that it uses the framework of a creation myth to dissect human behavior.
Yeah.
But it starts before human behavior even exists.
Right, in the very beginning.
Yeah, the narrative opens in what it calls a space beyond space. It describes this primordial state of pure, uninterrupted existence.
A hum that never began and a glow that never dimmed.
Beautifully put.
Right.
And within this boundless space, there are no definitions. There are no labels at all.
There are just these two fundamental forces, right? The first and the second. And the way they are described is so fascinating because it actively defies categorization.
It really does.
Yeah.
It refuses to let you put them in a box.
Exactly. The first is described as neither this nor that, yet both in essence. It breathes in the wholeness of all that was and exhales into the endless possibility of all that could be.
And the second exists right alongside it. Not separate, but, not identical either.
Yeah, the text says, where the first created, the second ignited. Where the first expanded, the second deepened.
Notice how the language there relies on verbs, on continuous action.
Rather than static nouns, yeah.
Right. Creation here isn't a singular event. It isn't like an architect drafting a blueprint, building a house, and then just walking away.
Right, it's not a finished product.
It's an ongoing relationship. The second is woven into the breath of the first. Their existence is an echo of each other.
And out of this continuous interplay, the first whispers of form take shape. The swirling of stars, the singing of rivers.
But the philosophical core of this entire text, the part that really matters for us, hinges on a silent exchange between these two forces before any of those forms solidify.
Yes. The second asks a question without using words. It just projects a thought into the void. Why do we create?
Such a profound question.
And the first answers, because to exist is to become. To be whole is to be willing to dance between knowing and unknowing.
To exist is to become. I mean, that phrase right there dismantles our entire modern understanding of success, identity, and reality.
How so?
Well, we are conditioned to think of life as a series of destinations, right? You graduate, you get the job, you get married, you find yourself.
Yeah, check.
Exactly. We treat identity as a finished product.
We want to be a noun. We want to be a success or an expert.
But becoming is a verb.
Right. It implies that the fundamental nature of reality is this infinite, fluid unfolding. It's less like constructing a building and much more like an endless improvised jazz duet.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, you never actually finish a jazz solo, right? You just keep responding to the notes being played.
Right, it's a constant conversation.
But I have to say, dancing between knowing and unknowing sounds incredibly exhausting.
It really does.
Most of us hate the unknown. I mean, we find ambiguity terrifying.
Which is precisely why that line is so crucial. To be whole is to be willing to dance between knowing and unknowing. The text is suggesting that true wholeness actually requires a tolerance for ambiguity.
So you have to be okay with not having it all figured out.
Exactly. If reality is always becoming, always shifting, then you can never fully know it in a static, final way.
Wow. So the moment you think you have completely figured out your partner or your career or even yourself,
You have actually disconnected from the reality of who they are right now in this moment. You are interacting with a memory.
you're talking to a ghost, basically.
Yet the creators in this text aren't ruling from above with a set of rigid laws. They are the foundation of a dynamic, moving system.
So knowing that the natural state of the universe is this fluid, endless motion, it makes the transition into the next part of the story incredibly jarring.
It's a huge tonal shift.
It is. Because if everything is an improvised dance of becoming, how did we end up so obsessed with rigid limits? Like, how did we get so trapped in our static definitions?
Right, how do we lose the music?
Yeah. The text answers this in its second section. It moves from the cosmos down to the emergence of beings in a spinning world.
These beings are forms given shape by this flowing existence, and as they wake up in this quiet cradle of a sky, they start looking at themselves and each other,
Just trying to figure things out.
trying to make sense of the shapes they have taken.
And instead of moving with that fluid, flowing knowing of the universe, they panic.
They absolutely freak out.
Assumptions start to take root. They start building structures made of names and meanings. And the text provides a piece of dialogue here that captures the exact moment it all goes wrong.
The original sin of labeling.
Exactly. One being points to another and says, "You are this, and because you are this, you must be that."
That right there is the birth of the stereotype. It is the invention of the mental box.
And the text explicitly notes that these words were made of only surface and shadow.
Right, they carry no true substance.
The response from the other being stops you in your tracks, though. They ask, "But do you see me? Or only what you expect to see?"
It's heartbreaking, really.
I read that and immediately thought about how many times a day I look at someone, a coworker, a family member, a stranger in traffic, and just see the version of them I've created in my head.
We all do it, every single one of us. And the tragedy, as described by the text, is that they assign form where there was only spirit, defined limits where there had only been movement.
They traded the complex reality of another being for a static expectation.
Yes. And from beyond, the second observes this behavior and offers this devastating diagnosis. The second says, their eyes have been taught to see in halves.
Seeing in halves, I mean, mathematically it makes perfect sense.
Right.
If a human being is 100% complex, just a chaotic swirl of experiences and contradictions, and I categorize them as simply the grumpy IT guy.
You are actively ignoring 95% of their reality.
Right, but hold on. I have to push back here for a second because I'm sure anyone listening is thinking the exact same thing.
Go for it.
Assigning form and names is biological survival.
Of course.
Like, if I'm walking through the jungle and I see a large orange shape with stripes, I don't have time to appreciate its fluid, infinite becoming.
No, you definitely do not.
I need a mental box labeled tiger, runaway.
Yes, immediately.
And even in modern life, right?
Yeah.
Think about a computer desktop. If every file was just an unnamed floating document, you would lose your mind. You couldn't work.
It would be total chaos.
So we create folders, taxes 2025, vacation photos. We use labels to manage cognitive overload. So if this labeling reflex is how we actually survive a chaotic universe, why does the text frame it as a tragic loss of connection?
That's the perfect question. And the text actually validates that instinct. It mentions that some of the beings clung to their assumptions because they feared the unshaped vastness.
The unshaped vastness, that sounds terrifying.
It is. That unshaped vastness, the chaos of an unlabeled world, is genuinely overwhelming. I mean, your brain consumes a massive amount of energy just processing visual data alone.
So we need shortcuts.
Heuristics, yeah. Mental shortcuts are absolutely necessary. Your tiger example is a perfect illustration of when a heuristic keeps you alive.
So the folder system works.
It works for immediate, superficial survival.
Oh.
But the danger lies in what happens after you file the document away.
Ream.
Well, think about it. When you put a file into a folder labeled taxes, you stop investigating it. You assume you know exactly what it contains.
Right, I don't look at it again until I have to.
Now, apply that mechanism to a living, breathing human being or a complex social issue. When you place a person in a mental folder, you are this, therefore you must be that, You stop observing them.
You turn off the curiosity.
Exactly. You turn off the mechanism of curiosity entirely.
You stop seeing the continuous changes, the becoming.
Precisely. You trade the truth of a dynamic, evolving spirit for the comfort of predictability.
Yeah.
That is what seeing in halves truly means.
So I'm only seeing the slice of them that fits in my folder.
Yes. You are only perceiving the sliver of reality that confirms your preconceived label. You are entirely blind to the becoming. These mental walls offer us a full sense of safety.
Because the unknown is scary.
Right. They protect us from the overwhelming nature of the unknown. But the price we pay is profound isolation.
Wow.
We end up living in a world of our own projections, completely divided from the true flow of reality and from genuine connection with others.
So we'd rather be certain than be truly connected.
It seems that way, yeah.
We build this fortress of folders and then wonder why we feel so alone inside it.
It's a self-made prison.
Which begs the question, if these mental folders isolate us, but tearing them down leaves us facing a terrifying, unshaped vastness, how do we actually live in that space without losing our minds?
Right, how do we function?
Yeah, how do we dismantle the walls without being crushed by the chaos? Well, the final section of the text offers a resolution to this. It calls it the return without departure.
And the way the first and the second intervene here is incredibly subtle.
Very subtle.
There's no booming voice from the heavens or like a heavy-handed moral lesson. The first simply reaches out with the lightest touch to stir the stillness, suggesting, let us remind them of the whole.
And what follows is a whisper carried into the world. It just says, know before you assume, see before you define, listen before you name.
3 simple instructions that completely subvert the way our brains are wired to operate.
Right, because our brains want a name first so we know what we are seeing.
Exactly. The text demands the exact opposite.
So, listen before you name. Let's ground that in reality. What does that actually look like for you and me? Say it's a Tuesday afternoon at the grocery store.
Okay, classic scenario.
Right. Someone cuts in front of you in line. The brain immediately supplies the label. Jerk. Selfish.
The mental folder snaps.
Snaps up instantly. So what does applying this whisper look like in that mundane moment?
Applying the whisper means engaging in what psychologists call cognitive decoupling.
Cognitive decoupling.
It basically means creating a micropause between the stimulus, so the person cutting in line, and your reaction, which is the label.
A micropause.
Yeah. In that split second, you consciously refuse the label. You see before you define. You observe the exhausted look on their face or the fact that they are wrangling a crying toddler.
Or simply the reality that you have absolutely no idea what kind of day they are having.
Exactly. And the key here is you don't just replace the label jerk with a new label like good person having a bad day.
Wait, really? I shouldn't give them a better label?
No, because it's still a label. You
Yeah.
just leave the space empty. You sit in the unknowing.
You tolerate the ambiguity. That's so hard. The text describes how the beings in the story received this whisper. Some clung to their assumptions out of fear.
Which is totally understandable.
Completely. But others let go. They allowed themselves to experience the unshaped vastness. And there's this stunning moment described where a being sits by a river.
I love this part.
The river has been there since the beginning, right? Constantly flowing, constantly becoming. And the being asks the river, then what am I, truly? And the river answers with just 2 words. You are.
You are. No qualifiers, no
It
adjectives.
strips away all the folders.
Completely.
The creators didn't hand down a new, improved set of categories. They didn't say, you were using the wrong assumptions, guys. Here are the correct ones.
They just erase the chalkboard entirely. You are. Full stop. Nothing comes after it.
And the text makes a point of stating that in that 2-word answer was the whole of the universe.
It is the ultimate rejection of seeing in halves. When you just are, you encompass everything. You are the knowing and the unknowing.
So the section is titled The Return Without Departure. Unpack that phrasing for us. Because usually when we talk about enlightenment or fixing our flawed perspectives, it involves some kind of journey.
Right, a pilgrimage.
Yeah, we think we have to travel to an ashram in Bali or, retreat to a mountaintop to find clarity.
That is the illusion of the journey. We think we have to depart from our current state to arrive at a higher state of consciousness.
But the text says otherwise.
The concept of a return without departure shatters that idea. It posits that you don't have to journey anywhere to find wholeness because you never actually left it.
Oh, wow.
The first and the second were never distant forces watching from afar. They're woven into the river, into the being's question, and into the being itself.
The knowing within the knowing.
Exactly as the text calls it. They are the knowing within the knowing.
So, returning to the whole just means realizing that the walls separating you from reality were always imaginary.
Yeah,
You just built a bunch of folders that convinced you that you were separate.
exactly that. The truth is the breath within the breath. Dismantling the labels doesn't require a physical journey. It requires a perceptual shift.
A new way of seeing.
Right. It requires the bravery to adopt that simple whisper in your daily life. See before you define. And it does require immense bravery.
It is uncomfortable.
Extremely. Refusing the quick comfort of an assumption leaves you momentarily vulnerable. You are looking at the unshaped vastness of another person and saying, I'm going to just sit here and observe, instead of immediately trying to control this interaction by defining you.
It's giving someone the dignity of their own complexity.
Beautifully said.
And the reward for that bravery is found in the final line of the source material. And for those who heard, the world was new again.
It's like waking up.
When you stop seeing a world filtered through your dusty, outdated mental folders, you suddenly see the vibrant, flowing, infinite reality that was always sitting right in front of you.
It is a radical shift. Moving from a world of rigid defensive definitions into a world of endless, fluid possibility.
We have covered incredible ground today.
We really have.
Moving from the boundless, improvised jazz duet of cosmic creation down into the limiting, fortress-like traps of our daily assumptions.
Those folders.
Those folders. We explored how our necessary survival mechanism of labeling can mutate into a prison that forces us to see in halves, cutting us off from the reality of the people around us.
And from ourselves, really.
Yeah. And finally, we looked at the liberating, if terrifying, practice of the return without departure. The realization that we don't need to travel to find truth, we just need to brave the ambiguity of the present moment and realize that we and everyone else simply are.
It really is a practical mirror for how we construct our daily reality.
So here is a challenge to take with you. Today, try to catch yourself in the act of building a wall.
It will happen.
It will absolutely happen. You will read a headline or encounter a frustrating coworker, and your brain will instantly hand you a perfectly neat, comfortable label to slap onto the situation.
Like clockwork.
When you feel that reflex, try to create that micropause. Ask yourself, am I seeing the whole picture right now? Or am I just seeing in halves? Do I actually see this person, or am I only seeing what I expect to see?
Just introducing that tiny gap of hesitation can disrupt the entire mechanism of judgment.
Create the gap. Tolerate the unknowing. And as we leave you today, consider one final, lingering thought drawn from the mechanics of this text.
Okay, what is it?
Well, the source material notes that the healing whisper of the creators, that crucial instruction to listen before you name, wasn't broadcasted loudly.
Right, it was a whisper.
The beings who managed to hear it caught it in the silence before dawn and the space between words. It required quiet to be perceived. If the cure for our rigid assumptions and our isolating mental boxes requires these silent, empty spaces, what does that mean for us today?
That's a profound question.
We live in a world that is terrified of silence, a culture that constantly fills every available gap, every quiet moment in the car or in line at the store, with noise, with content, and with 1,000 new labels every single day.
We never stop.
If you never allow for the space between words, do you ever truly get the chance to listen before you name? Something to chew on the next time you find yourself reaching for a label to tame the chaotic, beautiful waters of life. Keep questioning, keep observing, and keep diving deep.